your review of Flesh Eater was interesting.
Mhm.
It was awesome. It was so
Okay, good.
awesome. Yeah, well, it was so I don't really read reviews anymore. I read stuff about mine, but I'll pick up Rolling Stone every now and then. But it's not. I don't seek out reviews anymore. But I did, from 14 to however old. Like I'd get all the zines and read all the reviews. But so in all of my years of reading reviews, I've never seen anyone just talk about how they felt more so than what they were hearing. So you did talk about what you were hearing, but you were entirely explaining it in a physical way about your body, like your stomach turning. You're not knowing if you're supposed to be listening to it. You became nervous. It was just so. I don't know. I don't know if you know what you did, but I was like, I've never read a review like that in my life.
Well,
But it was exactly the kind of thing I guess you could say I was hoping for. That kind of physical response.
Yeah, I've realized I don't have much to offer when it comes to I don't know much about music technically. So whenever I started doing reviews, I was like, literally the only thing I can do is write about what I feel because I don't really have anything else for people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's your strength. That's your limit, and you can play within your boundaries. And if that's your boundaries, then go for it.
Yeah, it was a really, really interesting album to listen to. I enjoyed it a lot, and I still keep going back to it because I'm like, man, I need to think about that again.
Do you go back to a particular song, or do you do the whole 37 minutes?
I do the whole thing. I can't separate it. I don't know.
Good.
It's like such a. It feels like I would be taking apart a piece of art if I listened to it in separate songs.
Most people don't listen to music that way anymore.
Yeah, that's
funny.
why I like the album because it's almost like I feel like you have to sit down and change the way that you listen or revisit old ways of listening to music.
Good. It's funny because I never considered people not listening to the entire album. Literally,
Yeah.
I guess I was so in it and so unaware of the way the world is, but I literally never just thought someone's only going to listen to one song or someone will only hear one song. I just thought everyone would listen to it track 1 to track 9 because that's just kind of the way it is, but it kind of bummed me out when I realized that people weren't. But I don't know why. I literally just never considered it. So
it makes sense for an album like that because if somebody was like, oh yeah, I just listened to Haunted or something, I'd be like, well, what about the rest? You have to get through the whole thing.
That's why I like your review because you're like, I gotta keep listening. I've got to go to the next one.
It was kind of funny because I was sitting with my husband and a couple of my friends, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I haven't listened to that album yet. I didn't need to do that. And so it was like a hangout, and I started listening to it, and I was like, I'm sorry, everybody has to leave. I have to finish listening to this right now. But
so did you have it in your headphones, or did you just start playing it?
I just started playing it. And everyone was like, what are you doing?
Everyone was what?
Like, what are you doing? And I was like, sorry.
I wondered if the music was so weird that, or abrasive or confrontational, just the way it felt, not even the lyrics, but if people were kind of like, what are you doing? That feels weird.
Yeah, it wasn't for casual listening, for sure.
No. And I don't know that anything I've ever done has been that way, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always, I don't have a knack for melodies. I'm not a great singer. Music's fairly simple in everything I've ever done. I started off talking, so even when I made a record like How Long or something, that was the closest thing to background music I think I ever made. But even, I didn't think of it as background music because there's still so much more mindless, more melodic, comfortable music to kind of have on in the background than my abrasive tendencies or something. But anyway. I've never written songs in that way where it's the kind of thing you just want to have on in the background.
Yeah. And I think that's important. It makes people really think about what's going on. But I was wondering, for Flesh Eater, did you consider doing it without any music, or did you always want, like, some sort of melody in the background?
Right, yeah, it always had music. So
Cool.
everything was not everything was rewritten, but most of it was rewritten when I teamed up with the producer, Jason. So it would have been a mouthful of Dusty, but I don't know, I discovered a few new chords. So it had a few like cooler chords. But it wasn't as good as it could have been, you know? So when I met up with Jason, it's like, here's the songs, here's the album.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good as it could be, so let's make it better. And then we, you know, with a song like Be She in the Spirit, literally I met a drummer at 9 o'clock in the morning, and my instructions from Jason's instructions to us were, he didn't even show up. He was actually there way later. He just said, I'm going to have you meet a drummer. You guys just do something together. And literally, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. The drummer's like, I got to be somewhere. I've got 1 hour, you know. And so he just started playing some beats, and then that shaped the entire record after that. That made the whole, that was a definite, okay, we're going to go to this spoken drum-oriented type of experience. So the track 1, Be She in the Spirit, is from that session. So the drums and the vocals are the one take we did of that beat. So literally, that was it. He did one beat, laid it down, and then we did the bass in New Orleans later. And then the next track, He Is Behind Her, he started playing that beat. I talked a little bit over it, but there wasn't the vibe from the first track, so we basically just took that beat, looped it, and went in, and I just talked over it. But a lot of things changed that day. The time I went in with the drummer, I think Haunted was already done. So I had written that song on guitar, and it was pretty well the same melody, but I told Jay, I was like, I want this to be on piano. So we had this old out-of-tune piano in the studio we were working at, which was an old train track thing. Like, we had to stop every now and then because a train would go by. But he just went over and transposed it, I think is the word, to piano, and that was a scratch vocal track as well. That was all right. You're gonna do these chords on the piano, and then I'm gonna sing, and then so there was a lot of moments like that where it was just kind of a one take, we're done. Even Naked was him playing my sketchy guitar, and then me bent over a microphone in that same room. And then, so a lot of these things were meant to be throwaways, right? Like they were meant to be, they were just meant to have down, and you could redo them later, but there was something kind of special in some of those moments, and we just kept it.
That's really cool.
So, yeah.
That provides like I don't know, it gives more depth to the album, I think. So I like that.
But a lot of the album before Jay would have felt more like Penelope. That kind of just me on the guitar, kind of few chords, simple. But I basically just said, let's just make this, so make it the best album we can. What am I the best at? What are my strengths? And let's not show any of my weaknesses. So that's what we did, or tried to do.
I think the drums really added a lot to it.
Oh yeah, he killed it. So Jason's brother Josh is the drummer.
Okay.
So
that's awesome.
He grew up. The drummer just grew up playing in worship bands his whole life. Like, so he went to a charismatic church, and he would just have 2 or 3 hour drum sessions, right? But he was on another level. He wasn't just some 16-year-old playing the drums for Christian worship music, but he was really into jazz and hip hop, and he's a phenomenal talent, phenomenal drummer. So now he doesn't really hardly do that at all. Like, he just kind of comes in when his brother needs him, and that's really about the only time he plays.
Oh, wow. Well, he still sounds good. So.
Yeah, no, he killed it. Yeah.
So I think I read somewhere that is that right?
So the last thing I lost you. I heard you were, and then it was blank, and then that's right.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think I read somewhere that you've had this album finished for like a year before you released it, or something
Yeah,
like
more
that.
than that. Yeah, more than that. I think. Well, so it wasn't mastered. There was about a year and a half or 2 years where it was done, but it just wasn't mastered. So I think the process started 3 to 4 years ago, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it's been done for at least 2 years, if not 3. So.
Wow. Have you been like anxiously awaiting it to be released?
That's a good question. Not in a way where I was rushed. Like, I didn't feel like I've got to get this out this year. All right. So life happened, and then certain things happened, and it was kind of like, well, it was just this thing in the corner. Really, it was literally this thing that I wasn't waiting for, but a thing that was coming for me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It was important for me to get out, just because it's been it's just different than another record in a lot of ways. But what was the same about it was, anytime you've got something completed as an artist, but you kind of haven't either put it out or you haven't moved on from it. So I wasn't allowed to move on from the Flesh Eater period. So anything I was working on since it, and I've worked on all kinds of stuff since then, but there hasn't been a freedom to dive in, because there's still this thing waiting in the corner that's just kind of a presence over everything I was doing. So I was excited to get it out, so literally so that I could just move on, so that I could just have it released from me, which was makes total sense. But it's ironic now, because now it's been a month and a half, and here I am still talking about it, and it's still shaping. People are still discovering it. It's still a topic of conversation. But now that it's out, I don't feel like I can't move on from it. So,
right.
Yeah, there was a certain amount of anxiety, but it's not even like a fake anxiety. It's just kind of I know what's coming, and my life is going to be different. And there's nothing I can do about it. So might as well just make peace with it.
Were you nervous about the response?
Nervous isn't the word. I was curious.
Okay.
Very, very curious. I'm still very curious. I still think this is the kind of thing that'll be hanging around with me for a long time, that people will still kind of keep discovering. Because, I'd like to go into the studio early next year to make another record, and it will be nothing at all like Flesh Eater. Like, there is no reason for anyone to think, oh, this is Bradley's direction now. He's going to be writing about sex all the time. Like, that's nowhere near the truth. And I think my discography has kind of shown that I'm bouncing all over the place. So the next record will be totally different. I don't know why I brought up the next record. What is it? Oh, Nervous. So, not nervous, expectant, curious. I thought it would be a lot. I thought it would be a lot more negative. I thought it'd be a lot more wilder. I thought it would have made more of a splash. So none of my expectations weren't necessarily met in a lot of ways. But a review like yours made me just go, yeah, okay. So people are getting it, even if they don't know what it is. So the main thing is I thought people would be like, what is this? So your review is exactly that. Like, what is this? So.
So I've read a couple of people just in like comments or stuff like that have said that they think that the album is kind of just about a Christian man dealing with lust. What would you say to that kind of response to the album?
At its core, sure. Like, it's the character is a man who at the very least has some sort of a relationship with Jesus, in that he is thinking of Jesus, he is quoting Bible verses, Jesus is pouring him a drink in the corner, and he is having sex with women at the same time. So at its core, that is what it is. It's a man having sex, thinking about Jesus. So yeah, I guess so.
Did you, there's probably a lot more to the album, right? But I don't want you to just, like, tell everybody all about, because I think there's a lot of, like, figuring it out on your own. Like, you can't tell people what the album's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it's going to mean different things. But do you want to just, like, explain a little bit more about what your inspiration was or what you were trying to express through it?
Right. Yes and no. Like, so there is absolutely me wanting people just to wrestle with it. There is, I mean, I've really not come out and said a lot about it. I guess I've kind of danced around some other issues revolving around it, but I'm still not necessarily interested in saying this is what I was trying to do, except the just fundamental things. Like, I was trying to make the best album that I could possibly make. So my intentions were to be the best artist that I could be, make the best album that I could, make what I hoped would be one of the most interesting albums ever made. I mean, I'm trying to just be the best artist that I can be before any type of agenda necessarily. But it's pretty clear that I was obviously thinking a lot about sex, right? So, it's interesting. When they talk to me about it, right? So you look at my record, How Long I talked about being a father and then abandoning my child. I talked about being a drunk who gets drunk every night on the front porch and just goes to sleep. I talked about, what else? I talked about being married to a woman in Georgia, right, and having a kid on the peach tree, blah, blah, blah. No one has ever in my life asked me, are you a drunk dude? Like, or did you abandon your family? Actually, I did have one drunk. One drunk asked me, I gave him a copy of my album and he came back to me the next day or a few days later and goes, how in the world did you write that song? Beer Can. Talking about Beer Can. He's like, you wrote that song and it's me. Like, how did you know? So he was asking me if I was an alcoholic. But, man, I put out this record, and the first question everyone asks me that knows me or wants to know me, which you haven't done, you probably heard someone else ask it, and you think it's kind of a weird question to begin with, but everyone's like, how much sex are you having, Bradley? Right? Like, you're obviously having sex. And it's so interesting that right there tells me and you and everyone that there's something a little bit, you can talk about being a dad and leaving. You can talk about being a drunk, and maybe there's not really a lot of questions about that, but to write an album like I just did, people can't wrap their minds around it, and they want to know if I'm having sex all the time now. So I just think that's a fascinating insight to what our priorities are, right? So if we speak of intentions or what I'm trying to accomplish, that right there says quite a lot, and I don't really know what else commentary I can add to it.
Yeah.
That's maybe why a record like this needed to be made, or I wanted to do it, or something. Because we can't help but ask about it. We can't help but think about sex. And I don't know that women actually realize how much men think about sex. I think if a lot of women could step into our minds, they wouldn't. They should listen to Flesh Eater first, and then then they can have their minds blown when they really step into the mind of a man.
So did you intend to, because there's kind of a discomfort whenever you think about, like, Jesus and sex. So was there kind of the intention of making people uncomfortable with the album and, like, you're in Arkansas, so being in the Bible Belt, did you intend to kind of shake things up?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, being from the Bible Belt is one thing, but it's not like my audience is Arkansas.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, I played like one show here in 4 or 5 years, so it's it has nothing to do with that necessarily. Yeah, discomfort for sure. Yeah, I did. I wanted people to be uncomfortable. Yeah. It's not like
Were you scared?
but it isn't like I tweaked the lyrics to make people uncomfortable. So that's one of the differences
Right.
between something being shocking versus someone trying to be shocking. So
Mhm.
they're stating that something is may or may not be shocking, right? So when I wrote Haunted, it's not like I said, how can I word this in a way that'll make people uncomfortable? It was, I'm going to write
Mhm.
this story. So I wrote this song, and it is uncomfortable. That's all there is to it. Like, I think a more better way for me to answer that question is to say that, while I didn't try to make people uncomfortable, I knew that it would, and I allowed it to be that way. Right? So that's
Mhm.
probably a better way to say it. I was allowing room for discomfort just because of the subject matter.
Mhm.
But in
Did you?
reality, I don't know why Sex and Jesus has to be so unusually seen as together, because you and I both know, assuming we're both from a Christian culture, it's not like Christian kids aren't having sex or Christian adults don't think about Jesus while they're having sex, and maybe it's right after they come, right? So they're sitting there and they're done, and then they think about Jesus. But I was just trying to put
Mhm.
it all together at the same time. So it's not really beyond anyone's experience. That's what's so
Right.
interesting, and that people are so shocked by it. But well, you're a human being, you're a spiritual person, you're a physical person. When are those two things not together?
Mhm.
Now I do know people I was talking to one guy, and he was like, man, you're talking about Jesus while you're having sex. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, I don't do that. I don't think about Jesus till I'm done. So it's just kind of funny. But discomfort isn't the worst thing that can happen to someone, you know.
Right. Were you scared that of like crossing boundaries? Like, I know, like, kind of the secular and the sacred. That's kind of like a theme, like balancing. So, were you scared of like going too far?
Not in that way that you're referencing, not in the fear of mingling the two together. The
Mhm.
part where I thought I was going too far was this one lyric that I had. If the devil is a lion and Jesus is a lamb, why can't they lie together after the trumpet sounds? So to
Mhm.
me, that's a far more dangerous, provocative, scandalous idea than she's on her knees but I ain't, right? Like,
Mhm.
so that was the lyric that had me asking people in my life if I was going too far.
Mhm.
The other stuff is no, it's not at all a concern. I
Yeah.
thought the album cover was very troubling, right? So my initial response to the album cover was actually worse than anything that I had read or had written, right?
Really?
So the album cover to me brought everything I said and put it in a visual element, and I mean my stomach turned like crazy.
Mhm.
I had like a 15-minute denial of like, there's no way I can do that. This is just too much. I can't put out this album cover.
Mhm.
But when I talked about it with the artist, because there were some other album covers that I thought were better, by the time I got to that one and we started talking it out, I was like, no, this is it. This is the one.
Mhm.
So to me, the album cover is almost more disturbing than the record. I showed
Yeah.
the album cover to one person, and they started crying. And they just told me not to
Wow.
do it. They said, don't do it, don't do it. But it's the gospel, isn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
that album cover, I think, is the gospel, the part of the gospel. So,
Mhm. Has anything like I read it? I was reading interviews, just so that I wouldn't ask the same questions all the time.
sure.
But like a while ago, somebody asked you about your faith and stuff, and you talked about how you don't like separate, like it's you're a spiritual person, so you write spiritual music and everything's kind of like connected.
Right.
Has anything changed like with your faith's impact on your music and art?
Has my faith changed, or did you use the word impact?
just kind of that perspective of writing art as a spiritual person and everything being connected like that.
No, that's never really been an issue for me. I've never felt like I had to say something or not say something. I've never felt a lot of that pressure that a lot of people feel to kind of have Jesus in every song, or even evangelism, you know. I mean, there were nights on the road where I wouldn't say anything about Jesus, and then there were nights where I said a full, like, Southern Baptist gospel presentation. So to me, it's just, what are you supposed to do and what are you not supposed to do? And the timing of it all, kind of being sensitive to the spirit or whatever people call it, or a room or an attitude, right? So when I was on the road, I would never hang out in the green room. Like, it would be really rare that I wasn't in the room with everyone, or really rare that I didn't sell my own merch. And the reason being that I always wanted to know what was happening in the room. Like, and I don't know how to put a word to it. I don't know how mystical it is, but it doesn't really make any sense. But I just always wanted to know what a presence in the room was, because every presence, every house, every place has a vibe, and I wanted to know what that vibe was. So I would respond to that vibe, and that would determine how I would behave, or the songs I would sing, or the jokes I would make, or anything like that. So I think with making art, it's just the same thing. Like, what's happening right now? What's the vibe? What am I feeling? What do I feel like I should say or not say? And then I'm not willing to put the restrictions that the Christian community puts on the artist. Or, like, I'm not going to say that the world doesn't do it. Everyone has their scene. Everyone has what's acceptable in their circuit. But this idea that a Christian can't say this or can't say that, or a Christian is supposed to do this, like, if I ever did, it's been a long time since I've prescribed to any of that. So there's just no reason for it at all, as far as I can tell. Except people want to feel safe, right? People want to hear, I don't know, they don't want to hear Flesh Eater.
Do you go, if you don't mind me asking, do you go to a church where you live, and was there, if you do, was your church's response surprising, or?
Right, good question. No, I do not attend an evangelical Christian church anymore. So it's been interesting question. No one's actually asked me that yet, which I find interesting. No one's asked me that yet. But no, I haven't been a part of what I would call the evangelical Christian community for, man, at least 4 years, 5 years.
Okay.
I'd walked away from a church with walls, man, maybe 8 years ago, where I was a part of a home group or home church. We had, there must have been, at any given time, 5 to 10 families. So we would meet at my house, we would meet at someone else's house. So I was rolling in that for a while, but even that group was so amazingly different from one another. I mean, we had people who believed that the Bible was the end all of everything, and it was inerrant, and it was this, and it was that. And then we had other people who didn't believe that at all. But we were all just kind of united by one another and our love for one another, and our, in a sense, us walking away from the four walls, if you will. Now, since that group has disbanded, I've been roaming a lot, so it wasn't really possible for me to be a part of a church group necessarily. And then, having said that, like, the people that I have in my life that I go to for things they know my heart inside out. I mean, there's the community that I have has always been very admirable or enviable to most people who are part of churches and go to it 3 nights a week and 4 nights a week. So it's not like I'm lacking for fellowship in any way, which I think is one of the misnomers of Christianity. They think there is no fellowship outside of the four walls, which is just completely untrue. But truthfully, I've gone the way of, I've been dabbling in Roman Catholicism now for the last 4 years. So it's kind of strange that I've gone away from one thing to this giant institution. But I've dabbled with Catholicism for a long time, man. I mean, I guess I've been attracted to it for 15 years, and so if I do attend church, I attend a mass.
Okay.
So when I was in Salt Lake, I was attending mass regularly. But I called it my art gallery. It was just one of the most beautiful sanctuaries in the country, probably. It was just this gorgeous, magnificent building.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go there and just either something would be happening or not. I would just sit there alone for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Out here, there's not that kind of beauty in a
Mm-hmm.
building, so I haven't been as inclined to go. I also work on Sundays now and stuff, but no. But to answer your question, it's not a priority for me to be a part of the evangelical Christianity. I mean, I'm not even like since this record came out, I've been far more thinking about it, far more involved in it than I have been. Like, I'm just not thinking about the things that they're thinking about. I'm not asking those questions. I'm not struggling. Like, just the question alone, like, do you feel like you've gone too far? Or do you feel like there's boundaries that a Christian should have? Like, that's not even a question that I've entertained forever. And then when you go to church on Sunday, they're still trying to ask those kinds of questions or have those kinds of discussions, and I just think there's far bigger things to be worrying about.
Yeah. Do you think that if that you would still release a record like Flesh Eater if you had stayed in an evangelical church?
Yeah. Yeah, so even when I was a part of one, so I grew up in one, and when I was 14, I had long hair and baggy pants and skated, and I was always that guy. I was always the weirdo. I was listening to the heavy music and such, and I looked like a little girl for a long time, so it was funny because my Meemaw went to the same church, and people thought I was her granddaughter. So everyone loved the little girl that went around and shook hands with all the old people, because it's what I would do. I would just go around and say hi to all the old people. So, and I was running into things back then, so I started booking shows when I was 15, right? So I've been involved for a long time, and we had people in the church say that we were having moshing happening in the building, which was a cult, and they were busting out the Bible, showing like it must have been where Elijah was involved, and they were all slashing themselves and running into each other, trying to bring their God, and then Elijah just brought down the fire on them or whatever. So that kind of rubbing against has been happening my whole life. I just never kept me from being a part of it, because it was just something that, well, there's a greater cause here, or I don't give a shit if they don't think I should be listening to this. I'm listening to it. So yeah, I mean, more concerning than that would just be, well, even my family. Like, my family knows how I roll, so it's not like, but we don't talk about it, right? There's members of my family who will not talk to me about this record. I told them about it before it came out. They thought they had an understanding of it, and since it came out, there has been complete silence. And I will never discuss it with parts of my family. But I'm their family, but they know I do what I do, and then there's nothing they can really do about it. I mean, I'm working on stuff now that the Catholic Church would condemn. I don't think they would necessarily condemn Flesh Eater, but there's other things I'm working on that I view it through that lens, right? There's this one project where I'm like, because there was a time where the Catholic Church said what people was condemned by the church, right? You can watch this movie, or this book is bad, you can't watch it, so they would condemn it, right? And back in the day, they would burn it, and they'd burn you too, right? So, so yeah, like, the fear of that kind of thing doesn't really keep me from doing anything, but I'm aware of it, right? So that's the difference, right? I'm not oblivious to it. I understand. I get it.
So with
That's all I
the
gotta say
stuff
about
that you're
that.
working on, oh, sorry.
No.
With the stuff that you're working on now, you said it's a lot different from Flesh Eater, but is it still kind of that controversial tone?
The what song?
Controversial, like kind of stirring things up?
Depends on the project. Like my next record, as it looks to me now, I don't see it that way at all. Right? There's no. I don't see why anyone would necessarily have a problem for the most part with the next record. But again, I've got multiple records, so who knows which one will come out of the chute. But go ahead.
Sorry, are they like spoken word, or are you doing more of like the singer-songwriter stuff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ones I'm thinking of now are more. I mean, to me, it's a mouthful it does meets How Long meets Flesh Eater.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of both.
Cool.
But again, that's only me just kind of telling you, like, man, I hope I get enough money where I can make another record. And if I do, I have a feeling it'll be like this. But I'm so much more open now to things just happening and not really having a plan. Although I like to have a plan. But so basically, Flesh Eater is kind of a universe, and there was some other things that have happened that I've made that are in that universe, but they're all very different. But when I was like, I'm sorry, the book that I have, that'll be coming out in October or so, will be controversial, if you will. But it'll probably just be a lot more confusing to people because it's actually much more compartmentalized, but it's all very on purpose. So yeah, so the next project that the world knows about will be something that a lot of people will not be okay with. But they'll be confused. Okay. They're going to be really confused because they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, over here, he was like encouraging me in the Lord. And then over here, he's not doing that at all. So it'll be really interesting to see. And a lot of things, like, I know we're talking about records, but records are, I don't know that I'll actually, I mean, I know that I will. I don't have any reason to make another record, to be honest, right? There's just the cost and the demand for records now are just, it's a strange time for music. And I think people will have to probably get accustomed to people making a couple records and then just quitting forever, which is maybe what they've always done, but people just don't realize how little money there is in it, and it's kind of like, why in the world would I just go into debt to make another record that a few people will hear? So the answer is because I can't really help it. I just love it. But a lot of what I'm doing is shifting just to the written word, like books, film. Right, so the book is coming out in the fall. I just started this other writing project with 30 other people that'll take a year to complete, and after that year, if it's good enough, that'll be another book. So I wake up in the morning at 5:30, and I start writing with pen and paper. I don't pick up the guitar hardly at all anymore. I tried to yesterday, and I've tried recently. It just sucks. It's just really hard sometimes.
What made you want to do the Pen Pal project?
Yeah, so it's part of it is just a fundraiser. The reality that no one's buying records and that streaming doesn't give anyone any money that they deserve, and me still trying to find a way to be an artist and make money without having to have a full-on career that keeps me in one place for 50 weeks out of the year. So it's rooted in money, first of all. Like, how can I have some sort of revenue here? But how can I do that in a way that's keeping up with the times and that people they want to be part of something or they want to feel like they're contributing to something? And the idea was that, I didn't want to do like a monthly subscription to get back. I didn't want everyone to have a picture of what I'm doing right now, right? So right now I'm sitting in a field drinking a beer, looking at the moon, little bugs are flying around me. And I didn't want to take a selfie and say, do you want to interview with Melted Calf right now? I don't want to do that stuff. So it was like, how can I be true to me? Something that would be inspiring to me, something that would be unique. And I also want to write every day. So I need some sort of writing exercise. I need some sort of, for lack of a better term, I kind of need a book cover to put what I do in. So I need to have a vision. So a Flesh Eater, there was a vision, there was this container, there was this character, there was this theme, and it was like, all right, this is my container. So with the Pen Pal project, I was like, how can I write every day? I'm a writer. What can I do with that? I'm going to write letters. Are people interested in that? Wait, I'll do 30 people. That would be one letter every day for a month. That'll get me in the practice of writing for an hour every day. So it just kind of came together. But that took a couple years to think, right? I mean, that took a long time for me to feel comfortable because no one wants to ask for money. Like, I would love it if it was just possible for me to have somehow just $2,000 a month. I could actually, if I could have $2,000 a month and just make art without any expectation, right? So if people didn't have to get like some sort of behind the scenes conversation or demos. Like, the last thing I want is anyone to have demos. Like, there's never going to be a demo reel come out of my stuff. Like, I want you to hear it actualized. I want you to hear it finalized. Because if you were to get onto my computer and listen to the stuff that I've written that you haven't heard, you'd be like, this sucks. So there's no reason for it. But with people aren't just giving me $10 a month, or people aren't just giving me $100 for no reason. So it was kind of a compromise, I guess, to try to be an artist that's making a little bit of money and do something really cool. But when the numbers are crunched, it'll come out to be maybe me making $2 an hour, and it'll actually end up being less than that. And when it's all said and done, it'll end up being a loss. So even then, I'm not doing a good job of it. Of like, it's like, yeah, I got $4,000, but I'm gonna work for an entire year and think about it and obsess over it. I mean, the whole thing will take months and months after the year's over to get it to a form. I mean, today I've already invested thoughts into what's really going to make it different than just a book of letters. Like, what else is out there? What else can this project be? So it's going to be a lot bigger than just kind of whatever I described it as. But like I told the people that are involved, if it isn't good, then it won't come out. Done. Like, I have a hard enough time putting out really good records, or really good things, so I don't want to start trying to put out really crappy things.
Right.
What did you think about the idea when you heard it?
I thought it was really cool. I was like, man, I've never heard of anything like that before. And I didn't even, like, think about it as a fundraiser. Like, that really didn't even cross my mind. I was just like, oh, that's a really cool project to think of. Something that, like, involves people, because, like you said, like, that's a huge thing right now, is that people want to be involved in whatever is going on. So if somebody's creating art, they want a way to experience that with them, I think.
Yeah. Well, I hated that I asked for money. Like, I mean, I even said it in the little description. Like, I felt dirty. But,
well,
I mean, we got to do what we got to do, man. I don't know what else to do. I still work. It's not like I don't have jobs. I mean, I work today. I still haven't eaten my dinner. I mean, I've got some right here. I got some ants on it. But, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, like I said, I hardly even noticed that you asked for money. I just thought that, that makes sense.
Cool.
I wasn't like, ew, gross.
Yeah, so. That's just how I feel. I don't like having, it's just hard, like, with the internet and your audience and the way Facebook throttles things. You just never know. Like, I didn't know that I would get 30 people to do it. I was really kind of embarrassed. So you want to talk about being anxious or being nervous. So I was more anxious or nervous really about that project than I was about Flesh Eater, because it was kind of like, I'm a lot more vulnerable when I'm just asking for 30 people to join me in some journey and then I don't get 30 people, right? So then it's embarrassing. Like I put myself out there and I couldn't even get 30 people. But once I talked about it, it's like people seem to really be into the idea of it, so it worked. So I'm stoked. But in our climate, in our day and age, like I've got to have something else. So I'm already like, all right, what else is gonna go down? What else can I kind of get involved in? But I mean, so right now I'm working, and then I'll go fish in Alaska again for July and part of August. Hopefully get some money from that, and then be able just to kind of write for a couple months, and then just find another shitty job. But I'm applying for grad school and stuff. So the reality so the way of life that I lived throughout my 20s and really I guess until I was 30, 31, it's just not sustainable anymore. I can't do it. Like there's literally just not a way for me to live the way I have been living. So the only thing that makes sense is for me to become a college professor. Because I can still make weird art. And I don't have to worry about parents, and I can have summers off, and I'll be surrounded by art, and I'll be encouraged to make art. So it's really just a goal of mine. So that's kind of a 3-year plan I have. So ideally, hopefully, so if I'm a college professor, then I have a steady income, and I don't have to ask people for money. I'll just be like, you know.
Would you be a professor for writing or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the goal is a master's in creative writing.
Awesome.
So
I considered doing that too. That's really cool.
I just need some time. I've got all these projects, and I just need if someone could just say, all right, you get 2 years to work on this stuff, which is what college would do. And it would just be awesome. It'd be so cool.
Yeah. Did you major in creative writing for your undergrad, or?
No, just English and philosophy. So, but English is very, very different than creative writing. You basically, in English, you're a critic. You're not really a writer. You basically just pick apart people's stuff and say if it sucks or if it's good or what's the theme, and you're more scholarly. Creative writing is you're just writing. You'll have to know fundamentals of writing and things like that, but you're not a critic, right? So when I made Flesh Eater, I made it as an artist, not as a critic. But people can now criticize it and dissect it and think certain things that I didn't put in there because that's just what people do. But I'm not good at that, so I couldn't write a music review either, right? So I'm not. I can complain about something or say something's good or bad and give a few reasons, but in terms of scholarship, that's required for just a flat-out English degree. I'm not good at it. It was funny. When I went away from college for a while, then I came back when I was 29, I think. I ended up getting a C on my first paper that I turned in. It's not a D, but I don't remember the grade, but I remember the teacher telling me, quote, "You need to learn how to communicate better," end quote. And I just thought it was so funny. I'm like, does this lady know that I'm a professional communicator? like literally, I traveled the world communicating. Yet here, but in that world, right? Like in that world, I did not communicate because they have a certain way of talking, and I did not speak in that language. So I had to learn how to speak in that language, and I'm still not very good at it. So we'll see what happens. If I get accepted, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to apply to a few different places. And
are you going to try to stay in Arkansas, or?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, Arkansas is on the table just because, but I'll apply to 6 or 7 places.
Sweet.
So.
I think that you would be, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say I don't expect it to be Arkansas. Arkansas, for some reason, the same program is 3 years at Arkansas, but it's 2 years everywhere else.
Oh.
So at my age, I'm just kind of like, well, I'd rather just get on with it. Let me just go somewhere I can get the same, because it's literally the same piece of paper. But honestly, I'm not confident that I'll get in anywhere, so I'm just gonna, I'll just go, most likely just whoever will take me.
Yeah.
Because in those programs only allow 3 to 5 students each year. So at the University of Wyoming, for example, they have 300 people apply, and they accept, I think, 3. So
Oh gosh.
so bare minimum, I'm going up against 300 to 500 people at every school I apply. So
Mhm.
I'm not that sure of myself in that world. I am sure of myself
Yeah.
in some other worlds, but in that world, I don't know. But that's where the big boys are.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to go to some Christian college and get a pat on my back and get told that I'm a great writer.
Yeah.
Right? I want to go to the NFL. I'm not trying to play for Canada.
There you go.
So I have
I
much
think
to
that
learn.
you'd be a really good professor because you are a good communicator. So I think that that's really cool that you want to do that.
Well, I had a blast when I was teaching junior high.
I didn't know you taught junior high.
Yeah, I did English, 7th and 8th grade out in Utah.
Cool.
So that's why I'm saying I want to go to college so that I can not have to mess with the parents.
Yeah.
So
So another project that you're doing is the Hathaway house, right? Where you're just kind of opening your home.
yeah. So I've always wanted to have a retreat center, like host a retreat center of some sort. So even when I owned my own home years ago, I had some land, and the vision for it was always to have little cabins out in the woods.
Mhm.
And even then when I was in North Dakota, I was working at a camp, 500 acres, and I was trying to head up what I was calling hermitages, this little 1-bedroom shacks out on the prairie.
Mhm.
It's always just been something really important to me to have a space for people to come to be able to get away from whatever troubles them or to attack some sort of project that they're working on. And then, so now I'm back in Arkansas. I'm living out in the country. I've got room. Got a place that will be great for anyone that wanted to come and stay and paint or write or draw or edit, anything like that. So yeah. So anyone listening, if you're an artist, get in touch with me. You're welcome to come and stay with me. So like right now I'm sitting way out in the yard so I can have cell phone reception. But if there was someone at the house, I would just look behind me and they'd be sitting on the porch or they would be in their room or whatever.
Mhm. That's cool.
So I hope people take me up on it. But if not, all you can do is make it available, eh?
Mhm. That's cool. Well, I think that those are most of my questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of add or anything else you wanted to say?
No, I would just encourage people to buy records that they like, to support
Mhm.
artists that they like. I mean, that's obviously what Melted Calf is, it seems.
Mhm.
You know, anyone who does what you're doing loves music and wants to share it. So I would just encourage people to support what they believe in. I'm not saying they're going to believe in Flesh Eater, but if they do me a solid, pay for it.
Mhm.
It's just the right thing to do, I guess.
Mhm.
People can get it anywhere. I would encourage people to sign up for my email list. If you go to brokefang.com, brokefang.com is kind of the place where you can discover the records, you can discover the lyrics, you can sign up for the email list. But that's really important because if you just try to keep up with me on Facebook or Instagram, it'll probably get lost in the shuffle. So that would be good of people.
Sweet.
But other than that, yeah, people just see who you are, whoever you are.